whatsoever education I acquired out of their sacrifice of over 300 years, I shall use for the salvation of the 400 million black people in the world. And the day when I forsake my people, may God Almighty say there shall be no more life for you. I unequivocally rejected the racist assumption of much white American Christianity, namely that God had created the black man inferior and that he intended Negroes to be a servant class, used of wood and trials of water. Well, I predicated my view of man on the doctrine of Imago Dei. All men, regardless of color, are created in the image of God. Now, from this premise follows the equality of all men and the brotherhood of all men. The biblical injunction of Acts 17:26 reminds us that he created of one blood all nations of men that dwell on the face of the earth. I was most interested in brotherhood within his own faith, because if Negroes are created in God's image and Negroes are black, then God must in some sense be black. If the white man has the idea of a white God, let him worship his God as he desires. We have found a new ideal, because whilst our God has no color, and yet it is human to see everything through one's own spectacles, and since the white people have seen their God through their white spectacles, we have only now started to see our God through our own spectacles. But we believe in the God of Ethiopia, the everlasting God, God of Father, God of Son, God of Holy Ghost, the one God of all ages. That is the God in whom we believe, but we shall worship him through the spectacles of Ethiopia. For 250 years, we have struggled under the burden and rigors of slavery. We were maimed, we were brutalized, we were ravished in every way. We are men. We have hopes, we have passions, we have feelings, we have desires just like any other race. The cry is raised all over the world of Canada for the Canadians, of America for the Americans, of England for the English, of France for the French, of Germany for the Germans. Do you think it unreasonable that we, the blacks in the world, should raise the cry of Africa for the Africans?
Africa's for Africans at home and abroad.
The Negro is a man. We represent the new Negroes. This back is not yet against the wall. We do not want this back against the wall because that would be a peculiar and desperate position. We do not want it here. It is because it is a fair asking for fair compromise. When the Belgians have control of the Belgian Congo, which they cannot use, they have not the resources to develop now the intelligence. The French have more territory than they can develop. They have certain parts of Africa in which they cannot live at all. So it is for you to come together and give us a United States of Africa. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We are not going to be as a country. God never intended it, and we are not going to abuse God's confidence in us as men. We are men, human beings, capable of the same acts as any other race, possessing on the bare circumstances the same intelligence as any other race. Now Africa's been sleeping, not dead, only sleeping. The day Africa's walking around not only on our feet, but on our brains. You can enslave what was done for 300 years the bodies of men. You can tackle the hands of men. You can tackle the feet of men. You can imprison the bodies of men, but you cannot tackle or imprison the mind. Lie down, black men, and dig. Reach up, black men and women, and pull all nature's knowledge to you. Join me around and make a conference of everything, north and south, east and west. And then when you have Rockwell, you will have merited God's blessing, you will have become God's chosen people, and naturally you will become leaders of the world. And if you bow down to the white man today, so a lot of races bow down to you and call you a racist master because of the superiority of your mind and your achievement. Because no race has the last word on culture and civilization. They do not know what we are capable of. They do not know what we are thinking. They are thinking in terms of dreadnoughts, battleships, aeroplanes, submarines. You know what we are thinking about? That is our own private business. So give us credit for being able to use our minds.
All right.
And with people becoming conscious of themselves, determined to use their minds, you do not have to understand.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Bro.Diallo broadcast. Very, very, very happy to have you here. This is an old school Q&A. We haven't done that in quite a while. Happy Garvey Day. Happy Black August. There's some things I should be, but I'm going to try something new today. I got from brother Lumumba. If you don't follow Lumumba over at Lumumba Speaks on YouTube, you should check him out. Lumumba Speaks, another atheistic, godless heathen like myself. You know, we don't have enough black atheists, and I hope that we continue to spread the God dispel, and we will eventually have more atheist and atheism within the black community. That being said, I'd like to get started. First of all, well, let's just get started. I got, for Garvey Day, I do have my philosophies and opinions of Marcus Garvey. This is my old copy. I have another copy, but this is the one I write my notes and put my opinions and stuff in and all that. So, if we have to go to the philosophies and opinions, and people like to throw Garvey in my face because, I would consider myself a Garveyite, but who doesn't at this stage of black development? You know how black people say, I would have never been a slave. And, they say if they were born in the 60s, they would have been a panther, or if they were around in the 60s, they'd have been a panther. If they were around in slavery, they'd have ran around with Harriet Tubman. But, I know that if you look at society today, there's grievous injustices and oppression. And if you are not a fully fledged member of some revolutionary organization or fully engaged in black revolution, I don't believe you would have done. I think you would have been a complacent slave or a passive Negro or colored man in those days. So it's a lot of people claiming Garvey now but there's not an evidence. I wish there was more evidence that people loved Garvey as much as they say they do. But that also goes for Malcolm X, and so on and so forth. But let's jump in. I'm going to try something new. Again, I'll go back. I'm going to share the link in the comments ever so often. How do you do that? Oh, it's the wrong thing. I'm going to share the link in the comments ever so often. So if you want to come in live and share, ask your question, comment, or criticism, and exchange directly in real time, let's try that as well. So you can type in your, like old school, type in your question, comment, or criticism. You can, or I will share the link and you can jump in and share and talk to me directly, face to face, mano a mano, or mano woman, whatever. And let's try that. I like I said, I stole this idea from Lumumba because last time I was on his feed having a discussion about spirituality and spookism, he kind of let people jump in. I'm like, man, that's brave. But we keeps it real. Let's keep it a buck. So if you have a question, comment, criticism, it's been a long time. If I don't have an answer that I feel is adequate, we can suss out the answer together. So we ready? It's good to see Chauncey. I'm about to start hating on Chauncey for real because he's down in a sunny tropical state while I'm still here stuck. I'm also on Instagram. Is that a question for me? Someone's asking a spiritual ritual. Would I ever have a class on logic for novices? Yeah, I'd be willing to do that. In fact, I'm about to get the book club, a Patreon book club started, something I've been promising for a while, and I'm about to kick that back off. So yeah, I would be willing to discuss logic and fallacies and reasoning and discourse, not necessarily a class, but I would really be willing to, because I think we need more of that. I think the demonization of discourse, or the diminishment of discourse and discussion, and this is an Instagram question, I think has harmed us. You won't go to a black gathering where you don't find people say, I ain't with all the talking. And if you are a person who shares insights, scholarships, and information, people will condemn you and say, oh, it's all talk, as if human intellect isn't the root of everything. If you can't think it, you can't achieve it. So anti-intellectualism, which is also very prevalent in the oppressors community amongst white people, anti-intellectualism is pervasive, but it is also very, very aggressively present in the black liberation struggle. And I will always say, and I think it's evidently true, and I can back up historically, revolution is an intellectual endeavor, more so than military. You can have all the guns in the world, all the dedication and martyrdom and willingness to die in the world. But if you do not have the ideological groundings, you're going to more likely than not make situations worse. We have too many, militants who don't have the ideological groundings. Arthur, I'm not going to try to pronounce your name. I'll just put it on here. Evening, Bro.Diallo. Know of any collective of Pan-African educators, curriculum developers, or teachers? That's a good question. Not formally. I know of many Pan-African educators like Dr. Jared Ball, the brother I just mentioned, Lumumba, with Lumumba's speech. I know there are a lot of individual, but as far as collective and curriculum developers, I would probably say no. One curriculum developer I know here in Chicago is Marcus Klein with the Freedom Home Academy. So most definitely, Marcus Klein, you can look him up and make a donation to his school and reach out to him about his Pan-African curriculum. And but as far as a collective of scholars, I don't know of any formal collectives. I'll maybe ask some of the scholars I know about that. Chauncey, where you been? You been hiding out like you owe people money, man. What's going on?
I'm all right. No conspiracy.
You breaking up?
You can't hear me?
You're just breaking up. I can hear you, but you're broken up.
Okay. I think you're
breaking up.
Let's see. Without the video, is that better?
Yeah, it actually is. I'm sorry to say. This wasn't a point to get you off screen. Huh?
The thing is, your music on your end is pretty loud. And
really? I barely hear it. Let me kill it. I know y'all don't like nice things. I know y'all don't like for me to set the mood. Y'all can't appreciate nice things. So I'll kill the music every time. Oh, my coaster's sticking to my cup.
I think the music is buffering the speed with.
Oh, okay. So it's gone.
Yeah.
You can't have nothing nice.
Yeah.
What's up, black people can't have nothing. Y'all hate on everything.
How you feel?
I'm good, man. I was down sick, and then I was traveling. Then when I got back from New York, I was sick again, and then I had to go back to New York again. Well, really Long Island mostly. But I'm good. Ready to settle in, get ready for this ugly Chicago fall and winter.
Normally, I would be with you in 2 days. What is it in 2 days? Can you remember?
Your birthday.
Yeah.
You and Dick Gregory.
Yeah.
You and Dick Gregory.
Well,
and every time I buy you a book for your birthday, you be like, I already got this book.
Right. Well, Dick Gregory passed.
You can't even play humble and be like, oh, thank you so much, and then re-gift the book down the line. You got to tell, I got this.
Well, Dick Gregory.
Who raised you?
On my birthday, though.
Who raised you?
Right. I had to check on you, bro. I didn't have a question or anything because we align pretty much on everything, right?
Right. You can set me up with something easy, like, brother, why are you so brilliant and beautiful?
Right.
Well, you can set me up with something.
Yeah. But I'm playing for the wrong team right now, but I'm doing covert operations here.
The spook set by the door. Yeah, I just met Sam Greenlee's daughter a few weeks ago.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, she wrote a foreword to the new a newly republished Spook Who Sat by the Door, and she wrote the foreword to the novel. So.
Oh wow!
And they had an event here.
Are they gonna do it in video form as well?
I don't know.
They need
should
to
remaster that movie.
Yeah, they could. Who would be who would play the characters now? That's a pretty good one.
It's gonna be some Uncle Tom. They love putting Uncle Tom in militant roles, like that dude that played Fred Hampton,
right?
Or Denzel playing Malcolm X.
Yeah.
Denzel is an Uncle Tom.
Yeah.
Say something.
Yeah.
Say
No. You ain't got no argument for me.
I'm thinking y'all giving Denzel a pass with his stuff, with his mess.
Hey, he tried to open that Leon's barbecue in Chicago again. I guess he had old memories, but he opened it with a bunch of Latinos.
Let me tell y'all something.
It went south. It went around. I don't think it went too well. It may still be open. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know when the hood gonna figure out Denzel is not who we think he is.
You disloyal mate. No,
And then Mo Man said that Tyler Perry or Lee Daniels gonna do the remake of The Spook.
they should.
I think they are actually. They're doing a series. They're actually doing a series. Spook Who Sat by the Door.
Okay.
Shit is wild.
All right.
Wow.
We shall see. As long as Tyler Perry don't touch it.
I don't know. I don't go see nothing. I don't go to movies. Movies got to come to me.
Right.
Free.
Yeah.
They got to find their way to me. I don't go to movies.
Everything is pretty costly now. Hey, my nearby local grocer has 3 for $5 on the Justice peanut butter cups.
Really?
Yeah, 3 for $5.
For what?
Well, they probably more.
I guess
there.
You living down there with them rednecks and racists. I guess they got to do something to lure y'all down there. When the revolution starts, you're gonna be on fire trying to get back up here to the south side with the rest of us.
I'm gonna break up the capitalism. I'm in Elon's pockets.
Y'all down there, y'all black people. I just can't wait. That's how I be hating. Y'all black people doing good for yourselves instead of staying down here with us.
Man, I know what it is. I gotta come back anyway. You know.
Yeah, come back. So I'm trying to fish and barrel you. Crab in a barrel. Come on back.
No, I didn't grab any of my belongings. I didn't do nothing with my property, anything. So I gotta come back anyway.
Okay. Yeah, you've been saying that for a while though.
Yeah.
All that sunshine.
Yeah.
All them blonde-haired white women with the silicone breast.
I don't know nothing about
bikinis.
that.
I've been down there before. I know what's down there.
I ain't never dabbled. Don't plan to.
I'm just saying that's what's down there. I didn't say you did. You obviously feel guilty, but I'm just saying. You be like, I got to get back to Chicago.
Get on with the show. I know people got a lot of questions
down there. Yeehaw.
Get on with the questions. I know people
got a lot of questions. Put your cowboy hat back on. Put the little piece of straw back in your mouth. I know how you doing. I'm not gonna tell though. Ain't nobody really watching. I never rat you out. It's good to see you.
I love you, bro.
I love you too, bro.
All right.
Back to business.
Later.
Peace. All right, so that's how it works. I'll share the link. You can come ask me questions in person, or you can come on here and I tell all your business, whatever you want. Okay, let's go. I'm gonna try to really rush through these questions. Not rush, but get to as many as possible, because oftentimes I don't even get to half of them. How can we build on Garvey's legacy for liberation struggle? First thing we have to do to build on a legacy is comprehend it. A lot of times we have opinions and we have emotions and feelings about who Garvey is and what Garvey did and what Garvey meant. This thing's just running in the background over here too. So the first thing we must do is comprehend the movement, understand it. Where the Sankofa concept, you have to look back to move forward. So we have to understand, and what I find a lot of people do is, after you comprehend the movement, you have to avoid trying to replicate the movement. That's what a lot of people do. People come to me all the time and they're like, you claim you love Marcus Garvey. Garvey was a capitalist. Garvey was a Christian, and you against capitalism and you against Christian. How you support Garvey? This is because I have evolved. I can learn from what Garvey did. So we can't replicate what Garvey did. When Garvey was organizing, the majority of the people in his organization were agricultural workers. And Garvey's main goal was to set up industry and agriculture. Industries, the dominant industries of 2022 didn't exist 100 years ago, many of them. With web-based, silicon, renewable energy wasn't even anything on anyone's mind. So what we have to do is understand where Garvey, what Garvey did right, what Garvey got wrong, and how Garvey can evolve. A lot of times we think of we hold these people in such high esteem. We think it's wrong to critique them. We think it's wrong to make adjustments or changes. So fundamentally, Garvey, one people, a united Africa, an Africa for Africans at home and abroad, repatriation, the back to Africa element. But in terms of people still trying to set up a Black Star Line or trying to do industrial capitalism, the capitalism that Garvey was advocating for African people to engage and master doesn't exist anymore. He was in the early industrial or mid-industrial capitalism. Now you have finance capitalism is the dominant form of capitalism. It doesn't even exist anymore. So we build on his legacy by understanding it, not falling into hero worship or trying to directly replicate it, being willing to honestly critique and dissect it, build on the strong fundamentals and modernize it to advance. I think that's how we do. I think a lot of people, I was even part of a organization that was basically portraying itself as a organization that is taking the baton from Garvey and Carlos Cooks and moving forward. It was called Universal, and that was short for Universal Negro Improvement Association. It was just called Universal. And the founder of that organization did not want to deviate one iota from Garvey's plan. And I'm like, you gonna get some steamships? The only place you see steamships is at museums. Like, and whenever you say something, he was like, well, Garvey didn't say that. Garvey didn't believe that. Garvey didn't want that. And even Garvey, when Garvey left, the man who took over after Garvey left, Carlos Cooks, changed like 70, 80%. He changed the slogan. He changed the slogan. Only thing he really kept that was directly from Garvey was red, black, and green. He took God out of it. One God. He took God out of the slogan because he was an atheist. And when the UNIA members went to complain to Garvey, Garvey contacted Carlos Cooks and said, keep on doing what you're doing. So, you got a lot of organizations. Stagnation is reactionary. Stagnation and revolution do not go together. So that's my quick assessment, quick rundown. And we can go blow for blow about things, but I think Garvey's teaching, Garvey's philosophy and ideology are still up to date. But his methods and specific tools and priorities have to be advanced and speak to now. Most Black folks are not agriculturalists. Most Black people don't even work in industries. There was a big time labor movement. Most of Africa at that time was under direct colonization. Now we're under neo-colonization. So the very nature of oppression that we're fighting is different. Garvey was organizing under Jim Crow. We're organizing under the new Jim Crow. So we can build on Garvey only if we are willing to use Garvey as a foundation and not use him as a direct play-by-play model, which I see a lot of Garveyites and Garvey supporters do. How do you think two dominant parties are going to approach 2024 election campaign? I don't know if this is analysis or wishful thinking. I predict that Biden will not have the capacity to reach or complete the 2024 campaign. So I think Kamala Harris is going to step up. If you notice, throughout Biden's presidency, Kamala has been relatively low key for a vice president. Most vice presidents take on some alternate cause or position. And for Kamala to be the first female and a first Black vice president, that is an extremely historical position that she holds. Also, the fact that Biden only picked her for optics. She's there for optics. And that's not to diminish her intellect, to diminish her capabilities. I respect that. I don't agree with her ideology. I don't agree with her politics. I didn't vote for her in the primary. I wouldn't vote for her as president, but I didn't vote for Biden either. But she is a really smart and capable woman. And for her to keep her on the down low, don't nobody have to know. I think Kamala is being prepared to take over for Biden. And she's a relatively low-key candidate. She's a relatively low-key candidate because they don't want her to carry on into the second, to Biden's second administration carrying any of his baggage. I think the deal was set from the get-go. We're going to push Biden as far as we can, and Kamala is prepared to take the baton for the next administration. So I think the dominant parties are going to the Democrats are going to push Biden, push a stay the course. They're going to go off of Biden's jobs number. They're going to go off of a Biden's reduction in inflation and fuel costs. They're going to ride off of the COVID numbers, saying he came in and saved us all for COVID. They got some pretty standard shit, but Biden has nothing to really get people going. The student debt forgiveness, single payer health care, universal health care, any type of new industry or new technology that really serves. He has nothing to get people to dance in the street about, but he does have some wins under his belt. And we'll know for sure, depending on how well the Democrats do in the midterms. And here's another thing. The Democrats have a majority. The last time a Republican actually got into office without stealing the election was Ike. I like Ike. Eisenhower. Every Republican president after Eisenhower has stolen the election. Even Nixon, who won with a major landslide. Even Reagan, who won with a major landslide. Nixon was in Vietnam telling the Viet Cong not to negotiate with the existing administration. And that if they didn't, and they knew that would cost the Democrats the presidential election if they couldn't get a peace deal in Vietnam. Reagan went to the Iranians and said, hold on to those American hostages. Let me get in office and I'll really hook you up. Iran-Contra. So even the Republicans who won by landslides still cheated. So the Democrats have a majority, but because this has never been a true democracy, majority is not enough to win the presidency or really any statewide election or federal election. That's a whole nother discussion. Everybody should read the book Rat Fucked if you really give a damn about the intricacies of American democracies and the political games they playing with electoral politics. Rat Fucked is probably your best book. But the Republican is no longer a political party. It is a cult. Trump is going to run again and win the nomination unless some real criminal charges and indictments comes down. The only thing that's going to stop Trump from throwing his hat into the ring for a second term is if he is indicted and in shackles, which it doesn't look like it's going to happen, even though he should. I think Trump should be locked up. Russia, everything Trump's been accused of, he did, including collusion with Russia. He fucking colluded with Russia. And a lot of black people are like, oh, this Russia thing, because we allow our hatred of Democrats, our justified and necessary hatred of Democrats. We allow that to blind us to the bullshit of the Republicans. I'll leave that at that. But what they're going to do is they're going to put Trump up. If they put Trump up, they're going to lose irregardless, because Trump is going to inspire hardcore Democrats, liberals, centrists, and even some leftists will run to the Democrats for salvation from the Trump hordes. So Trump will get in. It will be theatrical, and we'll have a second Biden administration, or we'll have the first Kamala. I think that the Democrats are going to win in 2024. Barring any type of because on the state level, the Republicans are really gearing up to steal the election. They're taking over the state houses, and they're appointing secretaries of states and attorneys, and they're changing their state constitution and their state electoral laws and changing the voter machine. So the Republicans have to steal elections. The Republicans have no policy. Like, you ask anybody, what is a Republican policy? Besides everything the Republicans are fighting for is myth, critical race theory. They're saving white people from shit that's no threat to them. They're saving white people from, they're getting white people, transgenders are grooming our children. Myth. Critical race theory, myth, hordes of immigrants and MS-13 and Antifa and everything that the Republicans have for the average white voter is a myth. But what's stronger than any white person's self-preservation is their desire to be racist against other people. White people will destroy their own or go against their own political interest, class interest, and the very fundamentals of self-preservation if they think it will allow them to attack Black or other non-white people or non-conformist people like queer people and things of that nature. So the Republican Party is a cult, and you have to look at it as a cult. The Democratic Party is still a political party, but it is a political party where the voters, the rank and file voters of the party are in direct opposition to the leadership and the funders. The funders and the leadership of the Democratic Party are centrist, neoliberal, and right-leaning. The voters of the Democratic Party are centrist to progressive and left-leaning. So that's why the Democratic Party seems so weak, because it is a party divided within itself. Because the average Democratic voter, like my aunties and my grandmas and my uncles who've been voting Democrat their whole lives, they have fairly progressive views. They want to preserve the post office. They want to help free public education and all that shit. But the funders of the corporate funders of the Democratic Party are right-wing and fascist. And the leadership from the president, most of the senators, a good number of, not all, but a good number of the congressmen and women, they run the spectrum from far right to progressive and even left-leaning. So when they get into power, because of all this internal conflict, people like the Democrats can't do nothing. They don't do nothing because there is real struggle, ideological and political struggle within the Democratic Party. Whereas the Republicans look so self-assured and strong is because there is none of that. There is no left, right. There is no divergence allowed. It is a cult. So you either going and so that's my answer though. But we could go into that. We could talk about that for the rest of the broadcast this evening. Just understand that my prediction is Biden either collapsing or failing to fulfill his duties of office between the election to his winning. So Kamala will take over just before the campaign, or she will take over within 6 months after Biden is reelected. That's my prediction. And I think Trump will join and win the primary. I don't think any type of criminal charges will stick with him. So I think we're going to have a repeat of Trump v. Biden or Trump v. Kamala. And I predict that either one of those, the Democrats are going to win a second term. And then after that second term, the Republicans will get another hit at the office. And if Trump loses, he's going to lose a lot of credibility in the party. So I think the Trump era will come to an end in 2024, either through criminal charges or him losing another national election. That's my prediction. It could be wrong. There could be new information coming out within the next several months to year that will cause me to change. But that's where I stand. If all things remain the same from this moment forward, or if the election was held today, that's my prediction. But of course, it's not held today. So next year, I'll be on here saying something else. So, but we are watching it. Yes, I know, Klein. Okay, right on. Shout out to Marcus Klein and the Freedom Home Academy. Again, if you look at the comments, you can also join live like Chauncey did if you want to ask your question and engage in real time. Everything is politics. Do you work with any organizers in the UK? No, I don't have any formal ties with anyone in the UK. I actually am in dialogue with organizers from Black organizers in places, believe it or not, like Korea and very much so in Nigeria. But the UK, I don't hear much. But I will be in the UK in September. So holla at me. I'll be in, I think, Italy, maybe Stockholm. I don't know. I have to look at the itinerary. But I will be in the UK next month. So maybe I'll make some connections there. Okay. Mark asked, Diallo, what do you think about the new rhetoric about Marcus Garvey being a con man, the boats he bought being broken down, his business practices weren't solid? Any thoughts? First of all, there's nothing new about that rhetoric. Several years ago, like 25 years ago, I think it was Let me see if I can find this. This is so old. This is like 20 years old. Oh, is it Money Incorporated? There was a list. I think it was put out by Time Magazine that put out a list of the 100 top con men of all time, and Garvey was in that list. And so they had been calling Garvey a con man since for the last 100 years. Even though, if you read any type of historical researcher or forensic accountants and things, they'll tell you that Garvey, and number one, Garvey was always working class. He was a skilled laborer. He never lived in a lap of luxuries. The only thing Garvey ever owned in his life, you read historians, biographers, you read Tony Martin, who is probably the one of the most well-known Garvey biographers and Garveyites, historians, John Henry Clark. The only thing Garvey owned that had any value, and it didn't have money value, is he had several small African carvings or artifacts. And he would, every night when he'd go home from a day of organizing and grinding, he would rearrange and dust and tend to his artifacts. If you look at Garvey's life, if you look at Garvey's possessions, if you look at Garvey after he was expelled from the United States, upon never returning, you'll find that he never had any type of large amounts of money. He never had. It's just like the motherfuckers who say that Africans sold each other into slavery. And you could ask again, every single nation that participated in I don't see the list. This is such an old list. I was looking for the 100 top con men of all time. Let me see. Just to show you, they literally put him up there with Ponzi. Anyway, I don't see it, but every so often, white people floated that myth that Garvey was a con man back in 100 years ago. So they've been calling him a con man, even though, where we see with Bernie Madoff and Ponzi, all these other people, they can demonstrate to us large sums of money going into his bank account, large sums of money, or extravagant purchases or evidence of an extravagant lifestyle. Show us some deeds. Show us where Garvey was stealing money. Garvey wasn't even convicted of pocketing any money. He was convicted of collecting money for one business, but because that business was solvent, he was illegally transferred those monies to another business endeavor. Never did the money hit his pockets, never did the money hit his bank accounts. And also, where's that book? If you read the COINTELPRO papers, it said that those signatures don't even match up. What's his name? Ward Churchill went and did investigated and said the signature, Garvey was essentially framed. Garvey went to jail when he was framed. And that was at the same time that the stock market crashed in the 1920s with Joe Kennedy, John F. Kennedy's grandfather, or was it his father? I don't remember. One of them cracker ass, thieving ass Kennedy had collapsed the whole global economy and led to the Great Depression. Those people who did that, those were the ones who called Garvey a con man. So the con man thing has never, there's nothing besides people saying, oh, he had a lot of people supporting him. He had a lot of people giving him resources. Over here, I got a replica of a Garvey share. And those accusations didn't come from UNI members. UNIA membership didn't call him. The people he was collecting money from didn't call him. But the people who were persecuting him, who exiled him, who confiscated his businesses and barred him from ever returning to the United States, those are the people. So Garvey was not a con man. He was very sincere. And another thing that shows you that he was sincere, he went to the UK and did the same work. And Garvey used to come back to Canada, and all his lieutenants and everyone would go up to Canada to meet with him because he couldn't enter the United States and get their orders from him. So, and even when he was very young, John Henry Clark, in the last days of the UNIA, of the big organization as we remember it to be, he actually went up to Canada to meet Marcus Garvey. So so the con man shit they've been leveling that lie against him, and that's what they used to frame him. And just like they put Geronimo Jajago Pratt in jail for being a murderer, these crackers lie. And it's really disgusting now that there are black people perpetuating this white myth about Garvey being a con man, or Garvey stealing the money, and show us what he did with the money. Moving and I actually met Marcus Garvey's son, Dr. Garvey, when I worked at Wyckoff Hospital. He was a clinical instructor and an attending physician there, and he didn't have no money. Garvey's son was a doctor, and he wasn't living lavish. He was living. So where's the money? As far as Garvey, the boats, Garvey. One thing that a lot of Garvey's critics said is that his organization grew beyond his administrative capacity, and he didn't have, just like Malcolm X said with the Nation of Islam. He said when he first joined the cult, it was a relatively small cult. They were able to screen people and educate people and put them in the correct spaces, but the organization started to grow so big and incorporate people didn't go through the proper screening and preparation. Yes, he got low quality boats because it was Jim Crow. So they would, when a black farmer would go to buy land, they sell him the worst land. When a black person would go and secure cattle, they give him the sickly cattle. This was Jim Crow, and he was operating under Jim Crow. When he went to Liberia to secure the land for the rubber plants, the U.S. envoy and the U.S. ambassador went to the Liberian government and said, "Don't you sell this Negro nothing. Don't you give this Negro nothing." And so Garvey was being undermined and sabotaged every step of the way. So yes, the boats were, but many of the boats were operational. And then, but they were sabotaged on docks. A lot of his international travel, and he would have contracts, and the contracts were violated, just like Cuba. People want to come and say, "Oh, the Cuban economy is a mess," and act like that's a because of capitalism and not because of over 60 years of ongoing subversion and sabotage. That's one of the things. Like, you can't make business. We need to make revolution. But Garvey believed, this is Garvey's issue. Garvey had sound agendas and sound business practices. Because you also know, Father Divine, there were a lot of black con men going on in that day, religious and black political con men around contemporaries of Marcus Garvey, even W.B. Du Bois. So if Garvey was one of many con men and hustlers, why did the government incarcerate him and put him in the tombs in Brooklyn, and then take him out of New York and put him in a dank swamp in Georgia, to the point where Garvey, the way the government treated him, he had respiratory issues for the rest of his life and maybe even caused him to die prematurely? Why would they do that to a con man? If Garvey did not present a threat to Western colonialism and to American hegemony, why would they move against the con man? We got con men all over. We've had con men from day one. So the fact that's one thing that lets you know when somebody is moving to in a direction different from everybody else. The government don't give a damn. If Garvey was just conning sharecroppers out of their money, like all them preachers were doing, like all his contemporary black leaders were doing back in the 1920s and doing in 2020s, if he wasn't doing nothing but taking the money from the sharecroppers and buying his wife furs and buying himself diamonds, they wouldn't have moved. They don't conspire against con men. Why is there gangs proliferating all over the country? And these gangs are founded and ran by drug addicts and petty criminals, when an organization like the Black Panther Party, that was founded by engineers, lawyers, doctors. Stokely Carmichael was pre-med. Huey P. Newton was a law student who went on to get his PhD. Bobby Seale was in the military, a military veteran in the military engineering program. This organization that was founded by scholarly brothers who demanded that all their members become scholars in themselves. The first thing you got when you joined the Panthers was not a leather beret or a gun. You got a stack of books. There was a required reading list. And they are obliterated. Notice how and then people come and say, oh, the Panthers had, every organization has issues, but why do some get obliterated? Why did they have a COINTELPRO against an organization that was a petty con? Why was there no COINTELPRO against a lot of these black churches and cults that are still here today? These black leaders that go around calling the white man a devil and saying horrendous things about white folks and Jews, but they still here today in luxury accommodations. So my thoughts on that is that it's bullshit, that we have to, Garvey's agenda was not only a sound agenda, it's an agenda that scared the shit out of J. Edgar Hoover and scared the shit out of white people, the colonizers, scared the shit out of these white Jim Crow white folks. They don't move against con men like that. They don't move. They wouldn't go through so much trouble to exile and you can never come back. They don't do that to murderers. You had murderers that didn't kicked out the country and told never to come back. So I don't think it holds up. I think a lot of people think it's slick to be contrarian and attack Garvey, but the evidence, the history, and the research doesn't hold up to him being a con man. I'm all for criticizing his business practices. He was a capitalist. I don't think capitalism is viable for anyone. Not for black people and not even for white folks who invented the bullshit. So I would also critique his business practices. But Garvey was operating off of the notion that white people were oppressing us because they did not understand our potential and our capacity. And Garvey said that when we have men of big affairs, when we demonstrate to white people that we can manage companies, that we can manage trade, that we can manage the apparatus of the state, Garvey believed that we would win the white man's respect and that the white man would welcome us to the table of world powers. Garvey was greatly mistaken about that. And when Carlos Cooks took over for Garvey, he understood that. So that's my thoughts on that. And someone else was asking me about that earlier. If it wasn't you, someone had actually asked me about Garvey con man myth. You know, you want to know who was a con man? George Washington was a goddamn con man. Abraham Lincoln was a con man. They called Abraham Lincoln the great liberator. You know, so white folks know that, when we were going around during the George Floyd, I'm putting the music back up on the low because my homie said he liked the music. Let me know if the music starts to bother me. But when we went around the country taking down the Confederate statues, Trump said the only honest thing he ever said the whole time he was in office. He said, if we keep taking down statues because of racism and sexual predation and depravity, we will have to take down every monument in our country. If we take down the Confederates, after all the Confederate statues are taken down, you're going to look at the Unionists, the Revolutionary War heroes, and be like, all these people were cannibalistic, pedophilic, rapists, scumbags. Trump is like, all of our heroes are scumbags. So why do these scumbags come down? You're not taking down the Lincoln Memorial. You're not taking down the Washington Monument. You're not taking Thomas Jefferson off the currency. So that's one right thing he said. And so that population is going to tell us which of our heroes are con men. They're not in no position to talk. Garvey was not a con man. Garvey did have some issues with the business and the infrastructure. But again, this is a black man trying to empower African people under the height of Jim Crow. At the same time, Garvey was marching in the street with the African Union and African Legion in Harlem. They were daily lynching African people, and lynching was not a uniquely a Southern phenomenon. They lynch people in the North. They lynch people in the free states of Kansas. So, yeah. Anybody want to jump in? Moaz, I heard this. I actually heard this. Someone said that they were producing a TV series on the spook who sat by the door. And it's either Tyler Perry. I mean, what ain't Tyler Perry or Lee Daniels? If they're not directing and writing, they executive producing. These are the dominant media moguls for the black community right now. Okay. Namdi asks, when thinking about Pan-Africanism 2022, why is it so hard with all the technology for us to organize and start pushing for self-autonomy? The reason it is because technology is a tool, but as I said, the ideology. African people were atomized. Integration has given us illusions. When African people were organizing under Garvey, there was no fucking illusions. When the Black Panther parties for self-defense organized, there were no fucking illusions. You still had Uncle Tom's and sellouts. You still had complacent Negroes. You still had scared Negroes. You still had Negroes that were patriotic, Jesus-loving, all-American, that didn't want no parts of nothing black. You still had all of that. But even the Uncle Toms in the 1920s and the 60s, prior to the integrationist movement, had no fucking illusions, because no matter how much you love you some Miss Ann, no matter how many American flags you, all of us had to go back to the back of the bus. All of us had to, example, Sammy Davis Jr. He was really big during Jim Crow. And another icon, Miles Davis. When they go perform at the biggest, venues in white America, the biggest concert halls, they were selling out, but they still had to come in through the colored entrance. They still couldn't stay at the hotel. There were Sammy Davis Jr. and Miles Davis. If you read their biography, Sammy Davis Jr., Why Me? Just skip over the parts about him doing satanic orgies. But Sammy Davis Jr. said he didn't believe in Satanism. He was just joining Satan's church so he could have sex with white women, because the satanic church wasn't tripping off of color like the Christian church was. So he said he only joined the Satanists. Yeah, and read it. Go read Why Me. And it's funny that Sammy Davis Jr. was a role model and an icon for Bill Cosby. And at the same time, Bill Cosby was running around saying black people sagging their pants and speaking broken English, and it's our fault we oppressed because we don't have good morals. He would wear a little Sammy Davis Jr. pin. And some weirdos. But anyway, Sammy Davis Jr. could have all this fame. Remember that big diamond, that big ass rock, Sammy, baby. And even when he would go and do those movies with the Rat Pack and tour the world, they were still calling him coon and monkey. He was still coming in through the colored entrance. When Dean Martin and the other Rat Pack was walking in through the front door, he had to go stay at some juke or stay at Miss Ann's boarding house when they were staying at the Ritz-Carlton. So there were no motherfucking illusions. There were no illusions prior to the integrationist struggle. So even if you wanted to betray the movement, you had to be, hey, I'm a traitor. Hey, I don't want no smoke with these crackers. I'm just going to stay in my place. Or as Booker T. Washington said, cast down your pail where you are. And so Booker T. Washington was like, the white man's foot is on our neck. And instead of trying to get his foot on our neck, let's dig in to the ground so that the pressure is from the boot and the ground. Instead of breaking his leg and getting his boot, you just dig a hole so that your neck won't be so hard pressed. Cast down your pail where you are. Don't try to change your station. If you're in a cell, don't break out the cell. Just freshen it up a bit, hang a nice picture, dust it and clean it. That's what they were telling us. So prior to 1968, 1970s, no black person had any fucking illusion about race and their status and standing in the country. You were a second-class citizen. You turn on the nightly news, and there's a white man saying, be on the lookout. There's a black, lustful beast on the lookout. They say, and the news anchor will be sitting there smoking a cigarette. There's a black beast on the loose. The police are looking for a black beast with a sunken brow and a lustful one in his eye. He leered at a white woman. Be on the lookout for this nigger. That's what you would see on the nightly news. There were no illusions, no escape for no black people, no matter how much money, fame, status, education they used to go. And in fact, even if you was an educated Negro, you better not be wearing your Phi Beta Kappa pin around white folks. You better stuff it in your pocket. Because if you were seen as uppity, and so then came integration, civil rights. You notice, you look at the civil rights movement, there were Negroes with PhDs marching with ties, and there were Negroes with brogue iron shoes and suspenders. They was all marching. But then after civil rights, the Negroes with the suit and ties left the black people in the overalls. They were like, you could have a white job, you could be a CEO, you can sit on the front of the bus, you can buy a house, hell, you can have one of our cast-off women. So now black people exist in a time where I'm an American, I'm ADOS, I'm foundational black, I'm me a Jamaican man. We were, you know, I had an African from Kenya just talk to me the other day about how black people are so effed up. I didn't even want to get into this tit for tat. I didn't want to talk about how the Kikuyus and the Luo were just hacking each other up over it, and then you talk about gang banging. We both fucked up. But he was calling out how fucked up we were, and I'm like, I ain't even gonna talk about what's going on in Kenya, even now with the election. But he was like, y'all was slaves, y'all violent, y'all don't know nothing about Africa. I admit, I know very little about Africa. To be honest, I know very little about America. Being born somewhere does not make you an expert. So and you talking about the continent of Africa, you're not even talking about the country of Kenya. You know, and I got relatives who are older than Kenya in terms of colonialism. But anyway, after colonization and integration, black people in Africa, there's this new reality show. I haven't seen any episodes, but I saw the preview for it. Young, rich, and African or whatever. There are a lot of escape hatches and illusions that we didn't have before. So you try to bring black people together and say, hey, we got a lot of different people. We got different classes. We got different opportunities. We got different levels of resources. We even have different priorities. But can we all agree that we are all oppressed? And who the oppressor is? Oh, I ain't oppressed. You got a victim mind state. Woo, 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 woo. You can't even get black people to agree on that. You can't even get 50 black people to agree the fact that we are oppressed and that who our oppressors are. Even with reparations, which is more black people are accepting the fact that we're due reparations, but there's a big population of black people who think we don't deserve no reparation. Y'all just want free money. Dave Chappelle did a whole skit about how black people would squander any money white folks gave us. And we sat there laughing at ourselves and our suffering. Then you have some black people like Clarence Thomas who think black people owe a debt to white folks. Herschel Walker, we got population of black people who think we owe a debt to white folks. Not only do we not deserve reparations, we should be on our knees thanking white people for bringing us out of the darkness of Africa. And so there is so many escape. We were atomized. We have so many delusions that we can feed into. And you have an African person who makes 6 figures a year, who gets on a Learjet and goes to some third world Caribbean country and goes from the airport to the resort without seeing all the suffering, just like a white person does. And you're going to tell them they're oppressed. We got black billionaires now. You know, so that's why it's so hard to unify. You know, the same thing happened in Nazi Germany. The Jews were not unified in Nazi Germany for 100 years. Zionism is about what? Well over 100 years old. Zionism is over 100 years old. My aunt, my great aunt, my grandmother's sister, who's still with us today, she's older than Israel. She's older than Israel. Israel's not even 70 years old. Zionism is over 100 years old before Israel was founded. So why couldn't the Jews for over 100 years get their act together? You had Theodore Herzl with pan-Judaism calling for Judaism, and Jews were getting their butts kicked. It wasn't just Nazi Germany. Long before Nazi Germany, you had Jewish expulsion, Jewish lynching. I tell y'all, there's nothing that white people did to African people that they didn't do to themselves, including chattel slavery, systematic rape, dehumanization, calling people inferior breeding stock, and questioning people's intelligence. Europeans were doing this shit through the medieval times. during the Greco-Roman times, they did not leave Europe. They left Europe being fully skilled and versed in all the atrocities they committed once they got to the New World in Africa. So for 100 years, the Jews just couldn't get themselves together. After the Nazis, they were like, okay, fuck. Because guess who was in the gas chambers? The Jews with the fur coats and the Jews in rags. The Jewish doctors and PhDs and the Jewish illiterate street hustlers were all in that same goddamn labor camp, in that same goddamn cattle car. When all their illusions were shattered, that's when they got their shit together. I hope we don't go through that. You know, Gil Scott Heron once said Jews went through a Holocaust and we apparently haven't paid enough of a cost. I'm not saying we should mimic, replicate what they did, but just to understand what can bring a persecuted people together versus what prevents a persecuted population, because the Jews in Europe were persecuted population. So what we have to do is work with those who are able to still understand the need for unity and those who aren't victimized by the dispersal and atomization. Hope I didn't spend too much time on that. Did Sam's daughter okay the TV series? Do they have permission? Sam Greenlee, he's asking about Sam Greenlee, the author of The Spook Who Sat by the Door and the producer of the movie, the wonderful, wonderful movie, The Spook Who Sat by the Door. If his daughter, I actually don't know. My wife actually spoke with her more. She actually lives on the East Coast. She just came to Chicago for that event for her father. But I really don't know. I know the producers are starting to be more sensitive about that. Like when they made the movie on Fred Hampton, Judas and the Black Messiah, they went to Chairman Fred Hampton Jr. and his widow Akua, and not only got their permission, but I believe they were paid consultants on that project. So I hope they do the same with Greenlee's material, but I don't have much confidence. I don't think I can look at it. If I'm nostalgic about The Spook Who Sat by the Door, I think I'm gonna just go and peep watch my old copy. I got it on DVD. Even though I don't have a DVD player, my old Xbox 360 plays DVD. So if I want to see The Spook Who Sat by the Door, I'm gonna watch the original. I ain't about to mess with that series. I have no confidence in any modern media. It's like what they did with Fela. But I digress. All right, Tony Tone. I'm sure you heard about our brother in arms, Garvey, going to jail and then finding a dead body in his HQ. First of all, let me just correct that wording. I do not consider Garvey a brother in arms. But if you do, that's on y'all. But yes, I have heard about it. But if that's your question, yes, I have heard about it. I do have some thoughts about it. But one thing I say, he's not my brother in arms. I don't consider him a brother in arms. But yes, I heard about it. If you have a question beyond whether or not I heard about it, I mean, I think everybody's heard about it. I mean, during that time, can you really call Garvey a capitalist? Well, he called himself a capitalist. So let's go to the Bible. Let's go to the scripture. Where'd he say? Where'd he say that? Propaganda, slavery, education, radical government, evolution, poverty versus. I don't know. Where did he say he is? He said it. I should have had that marked. I know we was gonna have to talk about Garvey's capitalism, but the capitalism then was not the capitalism now, because even Marcus Garvey and even the most anti-capitalist man who perhaps ever lived, what's his name? Karl Marx said that capitalism was a necessary. It's really fairly early in the book. I'm surprised I don't have that marked. Maybe I cut that page out with scissors, where he said he is a capitalist. But yeah. He was a capitalist at that time, but remember that was the era of the barons and the era of industrial capitalism, where capitalists like Ford actually owned factories. Now capitalists who own the means of production, they just own copies They just own. They just own. They own intellectual property. There's nothing concrete or solid. I don't know. I'm surprised I haven't marked in this book where he said he's a capitalist. I just kind of, but he was a capitalist of that era. But again, it was over 100 years ago, and industrial capitalism is fucking bad. Make note, I'm not excusing. I don't think the capitalism back then was better than now. But I would say he was a capitalist and a Christian. Even though he violated a lot of the fundamental tenets of Christianity. Just in order to be a good person, you have to be a bad Christian. So there's a lot of Christians out here who are bad Christians, which makes them relatively good people. So, but yeah, I mean, the brother said he was a capitalist. Who am I to say? You know, that's what he was. That's what he said. Garvey was more of a New Deal capitalist than an outright capitalist. Well, Garvey predates the New Deal. I think Garvey was bad at capitalism, and I think if Garvey had been allowed to evolve naturally, he would have abandoned capitalism, you know. And but he definitely, and yeah, he definitely violated a lot of tenets of capitalism. But I think what his idea of capitalism is securing the funds, because he did allow people to buy shares in the Black Star Line. Hold on a second, let me show y'all something. Give me 1 second. Hold on, I'll be right back. Ugh. Okay. Look at this. This, see that? It says right at the top, this is a Black Star Line, a share in the Black Star Line. It says capital stock of 500,000 shares, $5 each. So this is a capitalist product. This is capitalism. You know, that's how they were doing it. You know, there's an industry, you start up an industry, or you come up with a proposal for an industry, and then this is an authentic one. I don't know who it, but I bought this in Harlem years and years ago. Somebody saved it and preserved it, but this is an authentic share in the Black Star Line. Not that it's worth anything because the company is defunct, but this is capitalism. You buying shares, selling shares. He did seek to own the means of production. He wanted to set up a rubber industry in Africa. He wanted to set up profit industry and wanted African people to be shareholders and stakeholders in these industries, to own and control the means of production. I didn't see anywhere in Garvey's agenda and his philosophies and opinions where he was trying to do socialism, collective ownership, to dissolve the state. He was actually a nationalist, socialist. Ultimate goal is anarchy, no hierarchies and structures, no private property. He supported private property, and he went to Africa to secure private property. So he was a capitalist. They might say now, but you can't really call him a New Deal capitalist because he was alive. He predates the New Deal. The New Deal came in the 30s and 40s after the Great Depression. And I think if Garvey might, if we had an opportunity, the Great Depression soured a lot of black people on capitalism. Remember, Garvey was around during what's called the Roaring 20s. This is the era of the flappers. You know, so it was a time of Western society having all this money and decadence. You know, there's always with capitalism, the stock market was booming. So if you lived in the 1920s, you would have thought, outside of the imperialism, the slavery, the genocide, the war, you would have thought to yourself, wow, you know, this capitalism thing is working. And you would have thought Karl Marx, who was writing that decades earlier, Karl Marx was wrong. I would have thought it. If it was 1919 and I'm a member of the UNIA wearing my, petticoat around Harlem in the 1920s or the 19 teens, I would have thought you know, this cracker shit is bad, but as far as their economic system is pretty viable. I don't fault anybody for being a capitalist or the illusions. I wouldn't even fault someone who lived in the 1950s for thinking integration probably was a good idea, giving us our full citizenship and all that, you know. But hindsight's 2020. What's our excuse for being a capitalist in 2022? Because we've gone through the Great Depression, 2 world wars, resource rape, ecocide, and global pollution, concentration of wealth, maximum high rates of homelessness, you know, neoliberal capitalists on the verge of having the first trillionaire, while food instability is on the rise, starvation and everything. Everything that capitalism has promised has been proven to be untrue over the last century. So Garvey was around. Go and Google. I don't really have time to pull it up, but go to Google or DuckDuckGo and just put in the Roaring Twenties, and you'll see the economic and optimism of that time. You know, here, I'll just put it up here. Yeah, I want to see it. The Roaring Twenties. It was a period of economic prosperity with a distinctive cultural edge in the United States and Europe, particularly in major cities such as Berlin, Los Angeles, and New York City. You know, so and Josephine Baker. It was an optimistic time as far as economics. But if you can go, I just pulled it up on the, you know, and so anyway, the Roaring Twenties was a time where Garvey thought racism was, Garvey understood racism was bad, colonization was bad, oppression was bad, but he thought a capitalism was a viable system. And you really can't fault anybody for thinking capitalism was a volatile system, because it was industrial capitalism was relatively new. Prior to that, you had mercantilism, and you know, most of the economies were controlled not by private industrialists, but most economic priorities were set by monarchs. And people were just figuring out monarchy was bad and democracy was emerging as the dominant system in nations. So he was a capitalist. I don't fault Garvey for advocating for capitalism or attempting to integrate capitalism into Black empowerment and Black liberation. It was the logical thing to do now. I am a socialist. If 100 years from now, some new way of organizing resources, gathering resources for people, redistributing resources, if there's some new technology that makes the collective ownership of land incomplete, interstellar travel, or something comes along that proves capitalism to socialism to be non-viable or renders it obsolete, I would then, you know, you wouldn't have to say Bro.Diallo 100 years ago wasn't a socialist. Yes, I was. And I was and my motivations for being a socialist, I can explain within a 2022 context, which probably won't fit in a 21-22 context. But he was a capitalist. Garvey, a dogmatist. Garvey was not dogmatic. That's one good thing about Garvey. Remember, Garvey, I wish I had pulled that book. Oh, it might be here. Here it is, right? Yeah. This is the successor to, I'm showing it to Garvey, Carlos Cooks. Carlos Cooks was the man who took over after Garvey left. It says, from Garvey to Malcolm, this man has been erased from history. That's how scared white folks are of us finding out about who this man was and what this man did. And I really have to do a book review. This was a revolutionary. I look up to him even more than I look up to Garvey. Even though he was working with fewer resources because the movement had been decimated, I think he did more. I believe he was assassinated. If you read the book, I think he was assassinated by J. Edgar Hoover and the OSS or the FBI at the young age of 53. But this man took over after Garvey, and he came in and made major changes to the UNIA. He made some very aggressive major changes. This man was an atheist. Garvey was a Christian. This man was more leaning into to socialism. This man was extremely militant and uncompromising. And long story short, whereas Farrakhan took over the NOI, and Farrakhan's promise when he took over after his son took over and fell out of favor was that he was going to return to Elijah Muhammad's teachings and fundamental mission for the NOI. He was a conservative. This man was a radical and a revolutionary. So he says, I'm going to take this vehicle that was constructed by Marcus Garvey and drive it in a new different direction at a different pace. And Garvey said, brother, I hear your argument. I see your position and I can't dispute it. So let's go. Garvey accepted the evidence that things needed to change. Garvey was like, if I did everything perfect, the white man would have never been able to subvert me. The white man wouldn't have been able to try me on trumped up charges and exile me from the nation. So Garvey knew that he was defeated by his enemy. Both W.E.B. Du Bois was his enemy and J. Edgar Hoover was his enemy. And he said, my enemies got me. They greatly diminished my impact and they harmed my organization. So he knew that there needed to be fundamental change in the UNIA. And when fundamental change came to the UNIA, he embraced it. Dogmatists don't do that. If Garvey was a dogmatist, he would have told Carlos Cooks, you're out of here. He would have replaced Carlos Cooks, or he would have told Carlos Cooks, do it my way or the highway. So no, he was not a dogmatist. He was not dogmatic. Why we can't own a grocery store? Well, we can own a grocery store. The reason we don't own grocery stores when we did own grocery stores before is because we're under finance capitalism. Finance capitalism needs monopolies. So you'll notice the way you own a grocery store in 2022 is different than the way you own a grocery store in 1960s or 70s. Back in the day, black people had gas stations and they had grocery stores. So grocery stores now, the vast majority of grocery stores in my community are chains. So if you want to own a grocery store now, you got to go on the internet or go into your broker's office and buy shares of Aldi's or shares of Whole Foods. So you go on here, it's right here. If you want to own a grocery store, you go online and you buy shares. So you look right here. Right now, you can, if you got $42, you can buy one share of Whole Foods Markets. So you go online, wherever, you can go to bar chart, but you can go online. What is this? Oh, this is some advertising. You can go online right now and buy shares. And if you buy shares, according to capitalists, you own a grocery store. So if I had $42, I could go and buy 0.0% of on the NASDAQ. They're on the NASDAQ? They're not on the stock? I didn't know Whole Foods was. Anyway, that's how you own grocery stores in 2022. You got to go, or let's see how much Aldi's, because I know y'all hate Whole Foods. How you spell Aldi's? How you spell Aldi's? Oh, there it is. A-L-D-I. Huh. Oh, it's a European company. Did y'all know Aldi's was a European company? So it's even cheaper. So you don't need $42. If you want to own a grocery store, you simply go on the internet, and if you got 11.9 euros, $11.92 euros, Aldi's is, this is a time. As far as what I know about stock, it's on a steep decline. So this is the time. Buy. That's how we own grocery stores now. So this is finance capitalism. As far as owning a grocery store and going in and unlocking the door and putting on your apron, and the farmer comes up with his truck and you get the apples off and have your son stack the apples, that's just not how shit is done anymore. Now, you do have small markets and things like that, but generally, as you start to get successful, you get bought out. I had a friend who had a very popular beverage here in the city of Chicago. You've probably tasted it, but I'm not going to say it because I don't know if he wants people knowing his business. But he and his former wife used to get up in the morning and go to their little commercial kitchen site and make up some of these fresh, delicious juices. And he owned a beverage company. And he once sat me down and said the whole purpose of putting together this beverage company is first we made it fresh, and then we went up to Canada and got a beverage manufacturer, got a contract, and made a shelf-stable product. And the whole point of him creating this beverage company was so that Pepsi, Co, or one of the other big monopolies would buy him out, and he and his family and his kids would be set for life. So even when people start, one of my they had a vegan restaurant here. And a vegan chef started a vegan restaurant, and ultimately a big conglomerate will come buy you out. So the reason we don't own grocery stores is that the economy has evolved. We don't own the means of productions. We are not capitalist. Even if you own a business, even if you own a few stocks, you have no say in how the capitalist is set or the priorities. So they are doing monopolistic finance capitalism. So if you want to own something, I want to own a car company, then I got to go buy shares in Ford or Tesla. That's how the shit. And to be honest with you, if you just need for your ego, if you go and do it alone, it's like, no, I don't want to own shares of Whole Foods. I want to put my hands on the groceries. I want to chop up the dead animal carcasses and feed them to people. Then you have like a 97 to 98% chance of failing within the first year. And that doubles 110% of failing within 10 years. So that's why we can't own grocery stores, because white people have determined to intensify capitalism. And the reason white people have chosen to intensify capitalism, and capitalism is anti-business. Capitalism is not pro-business. Capitalism does not generate wealth. Capitalism does not create wealth. Capitalism concentrates wealth. So we don't understand what capitalism is. But the reason we don't have old school grocery stores, like my grandmother used to buy her gas from a black man who owned this gas station, and he always had greasy hands and oily clothes, and we used to call him Dirty Gerties. And we used to go to Dirty Gerties for gas and potato chips and oil changes, and it was privately owned. And that same gas station is now like a Phillips 66. Things are consolidating and monopolizing. My favorite grocery store in the world used to be Wild Oats. I used to love Wild Oats, and I would go to Wild Oats. Well, my favorite grocery store was the food co-op, the Park Slope Food Co-op. But when I left New York, I started going to Wild Oats, and then Whole Foods goes around buying up all these small green markets. So that's why, because white capitalists have changed. And if they change it up again and say, well, we're going to go in an even different direction, we don't even want to have grocery stores, we're going to 3D print food. We're going to take cows and pigs and grind them up and have these giant industrial 3D printers, and everybody's going to eat Soylent Green. Then what do we say? Until we unseat them from power, they play the tune, we dance. So it's not that you can't own a grocery store, it's just you can own shares in a grocery store. That's as close as you can get to practically owning a grocery store at this point. No. Okay. I'm just checking stock prices now. And stock prices tell you so much. Okay, here's the next question. Who ended up being more correct, Garvey or Cyrus Briggs? Oh, good question. I don't know much about Cyrus except that he was with the Communist Party USA. I think Garvey was more right because the Communist Party USA ultimately demonstrated that it was a white party for white people. And so Garvey understood that black race first. I think Garvey's race first philosophy was much more correct than class first, because that was really the divergence between Cyrus Briggs, who was a Garvey contemporary who wanted to bring communism. Well, it wasn't even called communism back then. He was a Bolshevik. Which today we call a communist. Slight differences. But Cyrus Briggs, for you who don't know him, believed that class is the real conflict. So that we had to organize with the white working class, not as black people, but as working class people ourselves, and fight for working class interests. Whereas Garvey said, no, race first. And if you got a black wealthy man and a black poor man, they should embrace over a black poor man and a white poor man. Garvey was right, Because who are some of the most virulent racists in society? Poor whites. It was not the Bilderbergs or the Rockefellers or the DuPonts who were out there lynching our ancestors. It was poor white trailer trash. And black people did not come up with the word trailer trash. Black people did not even come up with the word cracker. White people came up with all those slurs against poor whites, came from white folks. We were just repeating what we heard Massa say about the poor whites. So Briggs was wrong. And until there is institutional black power, you really can't ally with anybody else unless you have your own independent power. If you ally with somebody who is in a position of power and you don't have your own position of power to connect that to, then what you become is a tool or a subordinate of that person. So we need black power before we can negotiate how we're going to unite with white power, even if that's black worker power and white worker power, black communist power, black socialist power versus white communist power and white. So I think Garvey even now shows that it was right. And we already see the communist countries of the former Soviet bloc nations. Russia was communist, the home of the first communist, full-scale communist revolution. And Russia to this day is racist as fuck. Right now in Cuba, communist Cuba, black people are still being discriminated against. Cuba got mad black people. It's mostly non-white, but all the leadership, they still trying to do Jim Crow racism. And you go to the South Florida with the anti-Castro Cubans, they didn't learn racism when they came here to America. They left Cuba as racist. And Cuba is racist to this day. So is the Bolivarian Revolution. Look how they're treating black people in Latin America with their pinko. And I don't like it, but with their socialist leaning. Look at the status of black people in Latin America. There are more black people in South America than in North America. There are more black people in Brazil than in America, the United States. So he was wrong to say class. I think he was right to be a communist as far as him advocating communist, but we can do black communism and we can do black socialism. I think he was right in terms of saying, and history has proven him right in terms of saying capitalism is not viable. You cannot bring justice under capitalism. He was right about that, but he was wrong about going against Garvey on race first. Race first. Garvey didn't say race only. So you can be race first and economics and class second. You can be race first and anything. You could have a second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. He didn't say race only. He said race first. And I think that's where Garvey is right. Whereas the economics, Briggs was right. That's my assessment. Even though I have a relatively limited knowledge of Briggs. Y'all talking to each other. So don't nobody want to jump in and holler at your boy. I'm going to share the link so you can come on live and talk to me directly. One more time, shout out to Lumumba. Go and subscribe to Lumumba Speaks. Hell, so are you subscribed? I got 66 people watching right now. Do I have 66 people subscribing? Is everybody subscribed? Did everybody click like on the video? Can we juke the algorithm for more radical Pan-African analysis? Y'all talking to each other. Okay, JN. I agree that religion and spirituality as practice is a major negative to African liberation. However, I don't see its influence in logics disappearing. What can be done to reconcile this? I don't think it's inevitable that this can fade. I think we can have a community free of religion and spirituality. And the way we reconcile this is that we prevent that if let's say we can't get rid of it, we stop religion and spirituality from obtaining any institutional status. I hate to say this. God, I hate to say this. And if y'all tell anybody I said this, I'm going to deny it. The greatest thing that the founding fathers did was separate church and state. That is just fucking phenomenal. And I think, again, you can't even give those enslaving, fucking cannibalistic no good pieces of shit founding fathers of America any credit for that, because the Constitution was plagiarized from the Iroquois Confederacy. The all men created equal and endowed by their creator, all that shit was stolen from the Native Americans that they then summarily wiped out. But the way we reconcile this is say, hey, if we're going to have a political organization, if we're going to have an African nation, anything in the African, that there will be no religious mandates, no established religion, no ability for someone who holds to any religious or spiritual delusions to employ or impose those delusions on our infrastructure, on our organizations, on our institutions. That's how you reconcile it. Separate church and state, separate church and organization, separate church and academia. Allow, because I am an anti-theist. I am anti-religion and anti-spirituality. But if I was to govern a nation, I would not outlaw it. I would allow people to pursue their religious interests. Even with my children, when I was raising them, they did not receive religious or theological indoctrination. But my son got religious and theological education. I taught them about the various religions, the origins, the belief systems, the value systems, their historical and contemporary impact. I took theology classes and comparative religion classes when I was in school, and I was very interested and very edified by taking those classes. But you cannot come into the organization and say the Lord has guided me, or the Lord has put it on my heart, this and that. I don't even support. I know y'all don't like this. I don't even like the pouring of libation in organizations. The main reason I resent pouring of libation, because I've been to meetings in the African community, meetings in Pan-African organizations, and people have poured libations to Michael Jackson. People have poured libations to Jesus Christ. And I'm like, you pour your libations, you say your prayer, you bump your head on the floor, on the mat facing east. You do that shit at home before you get there. And if you want to put forth a proposal, if you want to advocate or change any priorities, then you better come with a logical, evidence-based, reasoned answer. Don't tell us because the Spirit put it on your heart. So I don't seek to deny people their delusions. If they want to have delusions, I like my escape too. I love my comic books and I love my video games. But I'm not going to sit at home and play a video game and then go to a meeting and say, hey, I've developed a whole new military strategy from playing Outriders. And see, like, they got these super pyrotechnic powers and they got these special laser guns. I'm not going to use my escapism or my fantasy to inform or to dictate the reality. So I think if we can't stop people from falling into religion and spirituality, we can at least inform people that intend to participate in organizing for liberation that they have to do what Malcolm said. Leave it at home, keep it in the closet. Every African institution, every African body, every African gathering, every African strategy, plan, agenda, organization must be secular, uncompromisingly, unapologetically secular. That's how we reconcile this. Russiagate is pure rubbish. No, it's not. No, it's not. I don't know why black people. I don't know. I think you're winning points against Trump advisors colluded. Like some brother that believed Russiagate was rubbish. Like, what do y'all fucking need? Do you know crimes? It's a crime of conspiracy. Conspiracy is a legal term, and it means I'm not even going to get into that. There were Trump advisors, Trump campaign workers who coordinated, gave information and data to Russian agents, and Russia interacted and engaged with Trump campaign officials in order to win more votes for Trump's, influence Trump, and to undermine and subvert Trump's opponent. That's what collusion is. Y'all motherfuckers, it's literally like Trump was like, his campaign colluded. No, Trump did not call Putin directly and say, hey, do this. That's not how crimes at that level work. That's why they had the RICO thing. That's what the whole purpose of inventing RICO was. When under normal laws, when you had criminal conspiracies, the top dog, Trump, or the mafia boss, was always and could never be arrested because his underlings, every crime that was done in the name of the mob boss was 5 to 10 steps separated from the mob boss. So no, Trump and Putin didn't twirl the phone. Hey girl, what you doing? They didn't FaceTime. Are we so simple to think if there was no fucking Russia, if you need a picture or a recording of Putin and Trump shaking hands, spitting or cutting their hands and being blood brothers? That's not how crimes at that espionage at that level works. And we need to stop consuming all these right-wing media without being critical of it at least. Russiagate, the whole point of Russiagate was, did the Trump campaign, did Trump's underlings coordinate or engage or illegally interact with a foreign power in order to help win the election? Yes. When Trump got on the fucking microphone and said, Russia, if you're listening, get more emails. That's fucking, that alone would have invalidated any, if Obama got on the campaign trail and got in front of a fucking podium and said, Russia, China, Kenya, they said he was a Kenyan. Kenya, if you're listening, Kenya. And Kenya has already released and hacked the McCain campaign and said, Kenya, if you're listening, they would have snatched Obama's ass out of there. His afro would have flipped off. They would have fucking knocked him off the ballot in every state. There wouldn't have been a Democratic candidate if Obama had done just that, let alone have officials from his, there's pictures of fucking Trump's son standing with convicted Russian spies. What the fuck? Why are black people married to this idea that there was no Russia collusion? Why are we so married to that? Because we hate the Democrats? We should hate the Republicans just as much. Yeah, Trump is a fucking idiot. And he colluded, his campaign colluded with their campaign. What do y'all think Russiagate is about? What about Russiagate? And what a lot of people say, they misrepresent what Russiagate was. They say Russiagate means Russia stole the election for Trump. That's not what Russiagate is. That's not what Mueller called it. That's not what any of the investigators call it. No one ever accused Russia of stealing the election. That's not what Russiagate is. That's not what anybody said, but y'all misrepresent what Russiagate was and then argue against that misrepresentation. That's why I said Russiagate was real. Oh, you mean to tell me Putin stole the election? No, that's not what Russiagate ever was. That's not what was ever investigated. What was investigated was there contact and collusion between agents of the Russian government and officials in Trump's campaign. Did that happen during the campaign? Yes, it did. Did it sway the election? It doesn't matter whether it swayed the election or not, because that's not what was investigated. Swaying the election was never in question. Flipping the votes was never in question. The only thing that was in question was there illicit or inappropriate contact between Trump campaign officials and Russian government actors or agents or non-state actors? And the answer to that is fucking yes. That's what Russiagate is. If you think Russiagate is anything else, then you are falling for right-wing propaganda. You know, I go into the bank and fucking bounce a check, and then I get investigated for bouncing a check, and that's Diallo Gate. And they're like, "Oh, Diallo, I didn't try to rob the bank. No one accused me of robbing the bank. I didn't try to embezzle money from the bank. Nobody accused me of that. Does that mean I didn't do what they said I did? And you misrepresent the crime I committed in order to say I didn't commit a crime." Russiagate's fucking real, and I'm sick of arguing this shit. It's years old. Y'all just stop fucking watching Fox News. Listen, if you're not politically astute and informed, don't consume right-wing media. There's so many black people that are out here regurgitating right-wing talking points, and I'm sick of trying to deconstruct them. And I'm not saying this to support Hillary. I hate Hillary's guts. I think Hillary is an international war criminal. I think Obama is an international war criminal. I think they should both be at The Hague. They should be put on trial by foreign governments for international crimes. Trump and Hillary should be in an Afghanistan prison awaiting a trial before the Afghan because they committed war crimes there, Iraq, Somalia. Lock them all up. I agree with that. So I'm not saying Russiagate is real to defend the Democrats. I don't like the Democrats. I didn't vote for Obama's second term. I didn't vote for Biden. I don't support the Clintons. I didn't vote for Bill Clinton back in '92. Which was the first election I was eligible to vote in. But God damn it, I'm not about to lie in favor of the Republicans just because I don't like the Democrats. The fucking part of the game is that. Get on out of here. You think Trump will win against Biden? Nope. Trump is even weaker now than he was in the most recent general election. Do you think a new boogeyman will be created in America, or will they revisit the old monsters such as Iron Curtain, terrorists, etc.? That's a good question. I think right now, I think they tried to push the whole eco-terrorist thing. I think eco-terrorism is going to come back because a lot of people are fed up with the destruction of the ecosystems, and a lot of young white people are taking action against. So I think eco-terrorists will start trending again when the environmental movement starts to ramp up and become more militant. But I think they're going back to Latin America in the coming years, because right now, pandemic, monkeypox, and all that shit is dominating the headlines. But after that shit moves to the back burner, Latin America is having an ongoing struggle. You know, Colombia has been the biggest Uncle Tom nation in Latin America. Colombia has been America's lapdog for decades. Colombia just elected a left-wing or left-leaning government. Venezuela has not succumbed to the U.S. pressure, and Venezuela has fought off several U.S. coup d'etats and assassinations. Cuba is suffering greatly, and it's getting a lot of sympathies because Cuba is having an energy crisis. They just had a major fire, and a lot of people are condemning that. South America, parts of the Caribbean are starting to go leftist. So I think they're about to start talking about with SOCOM, South American Command, more so than AFRICOM. I think the United States, since they're still over in the Middle East, they're still, organizing the pullout from the Middle East. I think the U.S. attention is going to go to Latin America. So I think the new boogeyman will be communist and socialist in Latin America. If they don't, or they'll talk about narco-terrorism of Latin America. And we have to go, if they talking about going into Latin America or South America to attack narco-terrorists or drug traffickers, MS-13, understand the United States doesn't give a damn about drug traffickers or gang members who kill everyday people. They care about communists and socialists. And Latin America every few years starts trying to go left, trying to go socialist, and their Native American uprisings, their black movements. Right now, Brazil is having a major black people in Brazil are trying to once again organize to fight against the racism and stuff. And people are really disgusted with the right-wing dictators like Bolsonaro, who was in power there. They're really sick that their leader, Lula da Silva, was falsely in prison. So I think the new boogeyman will be Latin America. As far as the Iron Curtain, they tried to talk about Iron Curtain, but only the dumbest. But here's the problem with why the Iron Curtain doesn't work. The right wing in America loves Russia. Russia is a state that is a white nationalist. Putin is an Orthodox, Eastern Orthodox Christian. He's a white nationalist and a white supremacist or a white aggressor. There's a lot of things. So the Democratic Party is anti-Putin. The Republicans are pro-Putin. That's why they can't really get together this the communist Russia is coming to get us, since they're split on Russia. But Latin America, the Democrats and the Republicans are on the same page there. So they can't create a boogeyman with half the political power in the United States refusing to acknowledge or go along with that lie. Because Russia's not a boogeyman in Latin America, so you need an enemy that both of the major parties are going. So they were united like this on terrorists, and they're going to be united like this on the communists. But I don't think they're going to call them communists. They're going to say narco trafficking. They're going to be like, oh, fentanyl's coming and heroin's coming up from the southern border. We got to send our troops to Chile. We got to send our troops into Venezuela to stop the drugs from coming in from Mexico. That's what I predict. But again, I could be wrong. Do I still hoop? No, I haven't played basketball in a while. I went out and bought some basketball like 2 days before the quarantine was enacted. I got a new basketball. I got some decent basketball shoes. So if you're on the south side of Chicago, holler at me. I'll come shoot. I'm rusty as hell though. But I would like to start playing ball again. That's brilliant. I'm not sure what you're referring to as brilliant. Will I be will I be on any panel discussions? Oh, in Europe? No. I don't know. I know my wife is scheduled for some speaking engagements and presentations. I'm down to do something, but like I said, I haven't really had much time to plan my trip. I'm working on that now. So if anything comes up, I'll definitely let everyone know. Where are we? Are we wrapping this up? Greetings. Do I have any resource or links to Carlos Cook's writings or books and videos? I have this book. I have an old audio recording on cassette tape. And that's what I have. So, most of the stuff I have is old school stuff. I got VHS, cassettes, and books. As far as a lot of this new media, only stuff I get on new media is new stuff. So anything that was written, the people always ask me about Del Jones books and things like that, and I wish I had a resource for that, but I'm not as tech savvy as I appear to be. So I hate that. The first FBI agent was hired for Garvey, right? And like I said, Garvey was not the only active black person at that time. The government hated and feared Garvey, but you think he was nothing more than a con man? Like I said, we've got con men running since slavery to now. We've had black people conning other black people. The government don't care about a con man. He wasn't conning white folks. If he was a con man, he's only conning sharecroppers and industrial black workers. And you mean to tell me J. Edgar Hoover loved black people so much he wanted to bring down this con man from taking? Come on, it just don't make no sense calling Garvey a con man. It just don't make no motherfucking sense. Oh shoot, my computer's glitching out. I don't know if y'all can see it, but on my side, like the comments, why we like to believe that the worst about our people who sacrifice for us. Ranoko used to ask that question. Oh yeah, rest in peace, Ranoko Rachidi. And yeah, we like to believe the worst because a lot of black people want to bring them down because we're not doing. We got more resources and options available to us, and we're not able to do what Garvey did. Garvey did 100 years ago what we can't do today. He did more with less. Garvey was able to accomplish under Jim Crow what we can accomplish under quote unquote freedom and integration. So we tear those people down to make us, the same reason anybody tears somebody down that doesn't deserve it, to make themselves feel better. So if I want to feel better, when all I got for black people, when Garvey was like repatriation, unite Africa, one Africa for Africans at home and abroad, black liberation and building black power to oppose Western imperialism. When Garvey was doing that, and all we got in 2020, fucking black billionaires, financial literacy. How the fuck we go from uniting Africa and building a black African legion to financial literacy, multi-generational wealth on a dying planet? That's why they tear down Garvey, because they can't in any way match up to his accomplishment and don't even have a desire to. That's why they tear him down to build themselves up. Okay, scanning. What are my thoughts on the applicability? Don't be putting these goddamn words like applicability in the questions. Hey, you trying to bring a brother down. Anyway, let's say, what are your thoughts on the applicability of Marxism for Black liberation? I just picked up Decolonial Marxism by Walter Rodney. I think Marxism is highly relevant to Black liberation. And this is why. I know so many Black people hate Marx, and so many Black people say Marx was a racist. I don't fucking know. I've read quite a bit of Marx. And I don't see the racism people. I don't doubt it. You know, heaven forbid that I defend a white man. But I read a lot of Marx. The Communist Manifesto is a prophetic book. It's got more accurate prophecies about capitalism, and got more applicable prophecies about the evolution of Western civilization than the Bible and the Quran put together. But this is why I say Marx is relevant. Marx was talking about white people, white people's motivations, white people's structures, white people's priorities, white people's values. Marx, I always give him credit, his main goal was to humanize his people. He saw that the systems, the economies, the labor that his people was doing was back-breaking death. He saw it was horrible. And he says, here's a way we can take our resources and function in the world in a humane way. Garvey's main goal was to utilize the apparatuses of the state, the resources of the state, to create a humane system. But I think a lot of Black people hate and shun Marx because the system we were raised in is much. You can hate the system all you want as a Black person, but the system influences us. I hate Christianity, and I'm in my late 40s. And let me tell you something. I'm still working on my Christian indoctrination. I still struggle with my Christian indoctrination. I stopped believing in God at 12 years old. And my grandmother still made me go to church, sing in the choir, pay tithes, be an usher. And I went to Covenant Memorial Baptist Church, baptized, and sat in that church from 12 to 14. I didn't believe in God. 14, I said to my grandmother, you're going to have to put me in foster care or let me go live on the street because I can't go back to church. One Sunday morning, she was playing her gospel, making her Folgers coffee with the flavor crystal, singing her hymnals, getting my baby brother out of bed, getting my big sister out of bed because my grandmother raised us. She raised us up right in the Lord. We lived in the projects surrounded by gangs and cracks. And she was like, I'm going to raise these children upright. And I said, Grandma, I can't do it. And she saw a basketball on my floor and she threw it across my room and just said, I give up dragging this boy to church. 14 years old, I left the church. I wasn't quite an atheist, but I sure enough wasn't a Christian. But I'm going all the way. But anyway, long story short, here it is from 14 to 40, and I'm still fucking trying to purge my Christian indoctrination. So that's how powerful systems and societies are. The pen is definitely mightier than the swords because the ideas they implant in your head is much more difficult to extract than a bullet wound or a bullet in your body. You know, but still, give me ideas more than a bullet. Don't shoot at me. Just argue with me about my ideas. But all that to say is, I think Black people hate Marx and communism because the system we've been indoctrinated to, even though it's oppressive and we even try to reject the system, hates communism and Marxism. Marx explains the economic structures and motivations. He explains the very culture that was born out of the resources and the mentality and the disposition of Europeans. How are we going to challenge these people if we can't even comprehend why they do what they do and how they go about doing what they do? Dialectical and historical materialism was one of the greatest contributions to the intellectual ecosystem of modern man. If you can't dissect a system, the deadliest people are the people who best understand human anatomy and physiology. If you've ever taken martial arts, you'll see that martial arts and martial artists, real martial artists, are very preoccupied with body mechanics. how the joints moves, how every body part is articulated to every other body part. They want to understand your anatomy. They understand where your organs are. They know exactly, this is the heart, this is the windpipe. If you ever hang around martial artists, shout out to Dita Bam, he's a karate dude. But if you ever, like, I used to hang out around a lot of martial artists. They understand the fucking body, but they ain't about to heal you. They understand the body so they can fuck you up. You know. So if black people refuse to understand Marx, or refuse to research Marx, or refuse to understand what Marxism is, or what the history and impacts of Marxism, or understand why the average white person in the West hates Marx so much, then we're not really serious about challenging deconstruction or subverting the system. So the most important application that Marxism has for black liberation is that it informs us more than any black scholar could. Takes one to know one. He gave us an insider perspective. Marx, Engels, Trotsky's, Lenin. Lenin's cold-blooded, and Lenin is just an entertaining writer. Lenin is an asshole. So, you know, I like, you know. So, yeah, I think black people should read Marx and Marxist writers. If you don't want to read, because sometimes it's kind of hard to read because his language is dated, you can read modern Marx. You can read Noam Chomsky. You can read Michael Parenti, who's a Marxist. You know, you can read Sunsara Taylor. I don't know if she has any books, but she's very prolific on writing online. You can read Baba Vakian, modern communist. So even if you don't want to go read those old dusty books, because I know Marx is hard to read. I was a political science student. I got a political science degree, so I was forced to read that old language and Rousseau and all that shit. But if you don't want to go back, there is even modern communists who are pretty good at articulating Marxist theories, Marxist thoughts, dialectical and historical materialism. Go watch a documentary on it. So the greatest contribution, we don't need Marx to tell us about sharing and cooperation. We don't need Marx. African people do not need Marx to tell us about communal ownership. We had that before Marx was born. We had that in Africa, what he called primitive socialism, but what it was very much advanced than anything you see today. So we don't need Marx to teach us how to construct a humane economic system. We don't need Marx to tell us the values of to each according to his need, from each according to his ability. Our ancestors did that. That's in our bones. That's how our communities have operated. That's how we survived chattel slavery in the Caribbean, chattel slavery in Latin America, chattel slavery in the Americas. The reason why we're still here today is because we have inherent ability to communalize, to share, cooperate, and coordinate, and maximize the utilization of research. We are naturally socialists. We have to be educated out of socialism. So we don't need Marx for that. And that's the problem a lot of black Marxists and black socialists have. If you're looking to Marx to educate you about how to be an African, you're fucking up. But if you're looking at Marx to understand the system that governs our lives, that dominates the world, there's no better place to go. Now, a lot of Marxist solutions, communism and stuff, a lot of his solutions didn't pan out so well, but that's a whole nother discussion. But that's my answer. And I get sick of people jumping down my throat every time I tell them or I quote Marx. Okay. Everything is politics. I think ecological collapses could potentially redirect consciousness of black people. Potentially zero guarantee. I don't know. I think we might be the last. We're the canaries in the coal mines, of the economic coal mine. We are economic canaries. So shit hits us before it hits. So yeah, definitely the ravages, because we can't say the coming. The ecosystem is in a state of collapse. And the tragedy, like Africa has contributed nothing to climate change, is suffering greatly from climate change. But again, when things fall, they can fall left or right. So a collapse has the potential of radicalizing African people, or a collapse could have a potential of making us more dependent and making us seek more refuge with white folks. I'm really hurt nobody jumped in on this. Oh, look, somebody asked me, have you read any of Michael Parenti's book? I've read all of them that I could get my hands on. So yes, I have, and I actually got to see Christian Parenti. His son is no joke either. So y'all should check out Christian Parenti. He writes a lot about ecology. Check out Tropic of Chaos. That's a good book by Christian Parenti. But yeah, Michael and Christian Parenti, I'm very familiar. I've been reading Michael Parenti's books since I was in high school. We're in the roaring 20s now. Oh, yeah, we are in the roaring 20s. It's time for World War I Part 2. World War I 2.0. Yeah, it's about that time. Looking at my Gucci, it's about that time. Diallo, what's next after neoliberalism? If we don't stop neoliberalism, the only thing that can come after neoliberalism is a major global conflict that might go nuclear, a total collapse of ecosystems, or a revolution of the masses. Those are only three options. Major warfare, which will cause a mass extinction, major ecological calamity, which will cause a mass extinction, or a major working class and oppressed people revolution, which will cause a revival of ecosystem and life in general. Those are the only three paths we can go down. And it looks like we're going towards war and ecocide. Ecocide, world war, or revolution. Those are the only three outcomes. And thanks for my show. All right, thank you for tuning in. Everybody, like, share, subscribe. My wife's about to knock on the door. I can smell her cooking. She's making some summer vegetables, zucchini, stir-fry thing. You know, while I got y'all here, y'all wife ever insist you remember something that you don't remember? And my wife was, I said, Erica, we don't have pet names. We're so square. You know, I should try calling her baby, see what she said. Well, we don't have pet names. She called me Diallo, I call her Erica. But she's like, I said, what are you making for dinner, Erica? And she said, I'm making this spring vegetable or summer vegetable medley. I'm gonna stir fry it, I might put it over rice. And she said, remember, I made it before. And I'm like, I don't remember. You don't remember the fresh organic zucchini and the carrots and this and that? I'm like, I don't remember. Remember, Sekou said he didn't like it. I was thinking about putting it with potato. You remember? I was like, no, I don't remember. She's like, remember? It was about last year. I'm like, yes, I do remember. She's like, okay. And then that's the only thing that got me out of it. Is lying and say I remember her making this summer vegetable medley stir fry thing. I had to lie and said I do remember. Because who else wife does that? She'll ask me, oh, remember we went to your Aunt Joanne's house at Sag Harbor and then we did this? And I'm like, no. Oh, you don't remember? You were right there. And that's when you were wearing those purple shorts. And I said, you need to stop wearing those. They look silly. No, I don't remember. Remember, we went to the beach where they was getting. Yes, I remember. See, and that's the only thing. She insists that I have these mirrors. I guess we've been together 20 years. And she'd be like, God damn, I'd be damned if I live my whole life with you. You don't remember every moment of it. I gotta remember. So sometimes I just say, that's funny. That's how I do. She'll just keep asking me and reminding me of things that happened until I say I do remember. After a communist revolution, what is the role of organizations like the Green Party? What mass organizations will play with a RU? If there is truly a communist revolution, the Green Party would be integrated. The Green Party platform will be integrated into the new governing body. So you won't really need a Green Party because it would be redundant. All parties would be green. Communism would definitely, a communist revolution would prioritize ecology over economy. You know, truly communist structure instead of authoritarian government that was parading as communism in China and the Bolsheviks. The Mensheviks were the real communists. The Bolsheviks were the authoritarian. That's a whole nother history. But the Communist Party, the Green Party would become obsolete because all parties would be green. The whole society and structure would become green. So you wouldn't need a specific Green Party to advocate for ecology because all systems would be subordinated to the ecological interest and the interest of the people. Well, first, the interest of the people come first, and the people depend on ecology more so than fiat currency. So I would say ultimately the Green Party would become obsolete under a communist revolution. The stock market is going to crash in the next 15 years. I don't think so. But what do I know about stocks, man? I think the U.S. government props up, so the state would have to collapse because, again, as Noam Chomsky said, communism, the elites live under socialism, the masses live under communism. So the elites are propped up by the state. So if the stock market started to collapse, the government would do just like it did when the stock markets collapsed in 2008. They would just saturate it with money. So the government would have to collapse before the stock market is allowed to collapse. Del J. Ta-Nehisi Coates wrote a book about Obama called "We Were 8 Years in Power." What a joke. That statement is a joke. I haven't read the book. It could be a condescending name. I got spammers in the goddamn chats. Everybody, this is the last time I'm going to say it. Wait, let me see what that says. Tired of being alone? We can help you. Who's out there tired of being alone? Let me block this motherfucker. Sorry if you're alone, but this ain't the place to address that. The feed of Bro.Diallo show is not the place to address your lonelies. Oh yeah, this is dope. We need to stop trying to get rich off our community and start enriching our communities. Hells to the yeah, I agree with that. Is the troll gone? I saw a couple of his comments. I blocked him. I know you was on them. So every now I'm getting more and more trolls. I don't know if that means or not. Okay, we got somebody about to go buy all these. I expect a cut as your financial and stock advisor. KD says sex equals class. That's not true. If gender equal class, ability equal class, none of that's true. That's where class comes in. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Oh, okay. I think I see your point. Okay. You typing in all these comments, so I can't get your whole points. So I see the point you were making. Okay. Diallo, I saw a debate between Dr. Jerry Ball and like 3 crypto guys. They all say the same thing. The only way we can get free is if we have money in Bitcoin. We get us together. Any of your thoughts? We cannot get free if everybody tomorrow, if every black person woke up tomorrow and had $1 trillion in their account, we would not be free. Here's why. Look at simple history. African people were wealthier than the people who enslaved and colonized us. Say that again. Our ancestors were wealthier than the people who enslaved and colonized us. If wealth was the key to freedom, there would be no colonization of Africa. There would be no chattel slavery, no Ma'afa, no triangle trade route. If it was just money. And again, black people are poor, and I don't like black people being poor. And that's the thing. I get accused a lot because I'm a black socialist that I like poverty. And because I hate on every black millionaire and billionaire, and I don't think there should be any black billionaires and millionaires. I don't think there should be any millionaires and billionaires. And I call them all what they are, parasites, because nobody's done $1 billion or $1 million worth of work. So if you got $1 million or $1 billion, you have extirpated somebody else's labor. Now, let me tell you why being rich will not free you. Is because our poverty is a symptom of oppression. It is not the cause of oppression. You think them crackers got off a boat and came to Africa and be like, look at these broke people, let's enslave them? You don't know nation. You don't colonize poor nations. You colonize wealthy nations. I don't know why I'm having this. Am I bumping the table? My computer's glitching, but let's just get through this. Oh, I'm already over time. So I'm going to end on this question, and I appreciate everybody for listening. Money is a tool, but the problem is the economic system. Fuck the money. You have to look at the resources and symptoms. If you don't have control of any fundamental resources or infrastructure, you're not free. It doesn't matter how much money you have. The only difference between me and Oprah, me and Jay-Z, me and Dr. Dre is consumption capacity. When you get a lot of money as a black person in this society, you have a greater consumption capacity. Meaning I got to fly coach, you can maybe charter a jet. But even if I'm flying coach or you're chartering a jet, you're flying through airspace owned and controlled by white people. Do you understand? When we travel, me and my family just went to Detroit with my two sons, and it's fortunate because my oldest son is in college. He's moved out. So when we get to travel with him, it's kind of a treat. But when me and my son, we traveled and we got a room, we're splitting the same room. And you can go rent the entire floor. But that hotel, the energy going into the hotel to electrify the water system, the pipes, the wires, the codes and laws and policies, that's all white power. I wear a leather band made by a black craftswoman. I bought this is like 20 years old, and you get to wear diamonds. But the diamond trade, the diamond mines, the diamond industry is controlled by white people. It is the means of production. That's why you got to look at Marx. You can have all the fiat you want. But who controls the amount of fiat in the system? Who controls the interest rates? Who controls the central banks? Who controls the mines? Who controls the waterways? Who controls the airways, whether it's air traffic or transmission lines? Show me a black person controlling any of that, even on the African continent. The means of production, the basic fundamental resources, the bauxite, the cadmium. And yeah, a black person can go online and maybe buy some stocks in Raytheon and Hewlett Packard. Show me a black man in control of a nuke. No, there was only one black man who controlled a nuke, and that was Nelson Mandela. South Africa was the only nation on the continent of Africa that had nuclear bombs. When the white people were in control of South Africa in the apartheid, they had a nuclear bomb. The day one of the first bills, one of the first edicts to come out of the Nelson Mandela administration was to decommission and deconstruct that bomb. Like, no bombs for you. So good for you. You can take your goddamn crypto and buy whatever the white man is willing to sell you. But the moment the white man says, this is no longer legal for personal or private ownership, you better get that shit up quick. I don't care if it's your car, your house. If the white man rezones this property and say, oh, there was an endangered cricket found on your land. This land is now federal protected land for this endangered cricket. And they can buy your land at below market cost according to their laws. And this has happened. There's a bunch of black people, wealthy blacks that got together and pulled their money to buy all this beachfront property. Professor Mackey used to talk about this all the time, up and down the East Coast. They went out and bought all this property and said, we're going to build beachfront property because we're going to secure the bag and have generational wealth. And the federal government came along and said, there's a crane that nests here that's endangered. So we're going to have to, you're going to have to hand this shit over. What? All that money. Here's your money back. 50 cents on the dollar, half of what you paid. What? And as soon as the black people divested themselves of all that property, they sold it to white developers. I was just in Sag Harbor in Long Island, which was a traditional space of wealthy black people from New York. Black architects, black doctors, black investors went out and bought all this land. And guess what's happening? In the wealthy mansions are being gentrified. It's not just poor black America that's being gentrified. Wealthy black communities are being gentrified too. That ain't money, that's power. Money is not power. That's a lie. Money, power, respect. So these crypto people, and I'm sure Dr. Ball probably said all this better than I could. Fiat is fiction. fiat is not freedom. The first thing any free people you notice they have is a unified ideology, a unified mission, and a will to make it so. A will to make it so. White folks didn't buy. How much money they pay for this land? White people, this land was inhabited and colonized by impoverished white people. Go read European history. The crackers that came here to rule this land were a bunch of poor people. They didn't come here with no money to get power. They set up the currency system after they took the land. So that's a myth. And these crypto bros are some crypto hoes. And they about to get pimped in another economic Ponzi scheme. Now, I ain't saying don't get money. There's things I like. Let me tell you these things I love. I love these things. These architecture things. I buy these and put them together. I usually get them on my birthday. My wife buys them on the birthday. You can probably see them. No, you can't really see it. It's behind the plant. That's Paris, San Francisco, and they just came out with Africa. I don't have the money for it. I'm going to get it for my birthday. I think my wife will splurge. So I like putting these things together, right? I like them a lot. Now, if I had Will Smith money, I'd just go out and buy them every week. I'd buy all of them as soon as they come out, have them delivered to my door. But because I ain't got money like that, I have to buy one every a couple of, maybe one or two a year. Put my babies up. I got a few of them. You know, I got Tokyo, I got London, I got New York City, I got Chicago. I'm about to get my first African architecture Lego. But that's the difference. I got some nice things. I got things I enjoy. Some people could go to Paris. I just built a Lego Paris, and that's when I want to go to Paris. I just go. So money is not power. Those are things I like. If I had more money, I'd probably buy them more often. That's the difference. That's not freedom. Crackers could kick in this door and knock all this shit over and drag me out of here for a crime they know I didn't commit. And political prisoners. Hashtag free Bro.Diallo. Not y'all free. I'm glad there's no free Ghazi movement. Keep Ghazi. Hashtag keep Ghazi. But anyway, if anybody's selling you financial prosperity as anything other than an ability to buy more shit, you're not going to have any more power. And the moment you're deemed a threat, you do not have the infrastructure or resources. If you're going to have money, you got to do what Sheun and Bob Marley did. Fund guerrilla forces. Use your fame and status to build black power, to influence and inspire black rebellion and black liberation. If you're just using your money to floss off, then go to hell and stop bothering us with that shit. We don't care. Or we shouldn't care. We do. Anyway, that's it. And now after I talk down on money and talk about money like a dog, I'm going to appeal for y'all for your support. Currently strolling across the screen is how you can support the Bro.Diallo broadcast and the Bro.Diallo book reviews and the Bro.Diallo radio broadcast and all the other stuff I be getting up to. You can become a Patreon. Shout out to my Patreons. You can Cash App a contribution to the efforts here. Venmo even. Those are the ways you can support. You can go to African World Order and you can get this merch, like this Black on Black Bro.Diallo show cassette, t-shirt, and other African-inspired aesthetics of liberation. So it's a lot going on in a lot of ways to help. If you don't have any means to support the Bro.Diallo broadcast, that way you can you can share, you can subscribe, share these shows with your friends, lovers, allies, and enemies. You know, kick in, support. If you think this is of value, I think that the Bro.Diallo broadcast and all that is an asset. And if you think it's an asset, if you agree with me, then kick in. If not, then okay, you know, that's your right, that's your custom. Hate on. But anyway, that's it. Thank you everyone for listening. I'm very happy. I miss doing these live Q&As. You know, normally Wednesday nights is when we do the politics and bullshit show with Brother Biddle. He's not available, so we'll be doing Q&As until politics and bullshit is back on, and I definitely will keep everyone abreast. Tune in Monday morning, Q4 Radio, Q4.org. Listen to local radio if you're here in Chicago. And I believe the show topic is Confessions of a Failed Revolutionary. That's going to be me talking about me, myself, and I. So tune in for Confessions of a Failed Revolutionary Monday. And I'm doing a book review. I'm ready to do, I got 2 book reviews coming. And the next book review is Community of Self. Oh, it's in my bag. I ain't about to go to my bag. So I'm going to be doing a review. So look for that. So subscribe. There's a lot of good shit happening. Anyway, that's it. Good night. I'm trying to get off of here before my wife comes because I'm over time. Good night and peace, y'all. See y'all Monday morning. I'm sitting here.